Hi guys. I know I haven't done a video in a while, and this is really going to be more of a story than an update. Stalking continues. I actually had to get escorted out of the gym, not because of me, because of somebody there. I had to have somebody escort me to my car. So that was a whole thing. The abuse and everything continues. Um, there's been trouble with employment because of this person. Um, there seem to be three people involved. We've all but identified the one, probably the main one. So we'll see where that goes. But it's still going, but there's a lot I can't say. Um, so that's the update there. Um, but I wanted to talk to you today about an experience that's just been on my mind a lot lately. And I'm not entirely sure why I've been thinking about it a lot, but maybe it's because I went to visit my brother in Portland, Oregon, and of course, the homeless situation is it's heartbreaking. It's really hard to see, and we have it a little bit where I live, but nothing like this. And it's just there's so much we could be doing that we're not doing. Um, and I see these people, and it's kind of like there, but for the grace of God go I. So maybe that's why this experience has been kind of at the forefront of my mind lately. And I just want to talk about it a little bit. As maybe a lot of you don't know, there was a time where I was briefly homeless a couple of years ago. And what happened was I had the most wonderful dog in the world named Henry. This was before I had Sam I am. It was a couple years before. Um, and Sam, let's see, Henry, like every dog I've ever owned, was a rescue. And I'm not trying to diminish the love I've had for every dog I've ever had. They all, Aramis, Basil, Jack, Buddy, Henry, Sam, Juno. I've loved every dog. My all my furry nieces and nephews, all of my patients. I love every single one of them. But for whatever reason, Aramis, not Aramis, Henry and I had a really special relationship. That dog was, suffice it to say, the love of my life. We were like that. We traveled back and forth across the United States many, many times, just the two of us going from this zoo to that zoo or this job to that job or coast to coast. We were just always together, and we just had a really special connection. He was the old hound dog, and he was a rescue. I won't get into his whole story, but he had a very tragic history, and he had been very badly hurt to the point that when I first got him, I was like, we're gonna have to euthanize this dog. But I was able to rehabilitate him, and he was just the most amazing dog. And so when I first moved to California, I came out here to do it just temporarily, do an internship at the zoo out here. And so it was unpaid. So I wasn't making money. So I was going off what little I had, and I got a little assistance from a friend. And I went through that. And the housing that I had set up when I got here was it was not tenable. It was disgusting. It was filthy. I just stood there and cried because what was I going to do? You know? So I ended up, what is this when I first got here? So I went to a hotel for a couple of days and I looked at all these ads and I found another room for rent. I found a couple of them, but I found one that looked good. And I met with the lady and I could tell she was a little off. But I was like, well, she's a little off, but she seems manageable. She seems very friendly, very nice. It's a great spot. Um, so I took the room in this place with Henry, me and Henry, room in this lady's house, and there was another tenant and her. And the longer I stayed there, I found out, well, not only was she crazy, she was mean as a snake. She was vicious. She was a really nasty piece of work, and she got meaner and meaner the longer I was there. And so um, during this time, when we first got there, Henry stopped eating, which was not unusual for him after a long road trip. It usually took a couple of days and then he got back to himself, but he just never got back to himself while I was there. And I went and got him special dog food. I gave him baked potato. I gave him all these things. And he was like, okay, but he was just not himself. And the lady, in addition to being like mean, was also kind of like a hippy dippy holistic. give them, raw food kind of thing. And I'm like, I know what I'm doing. Please don't give my dog this, that, or the other. And she said she wouldn't. Silly me. So anyway, Henry just got worse and worse. And he got very thin, and I took him to the vet, and he ended up having to have a splenectomy. And he was in recovery from that. And I was doing this unpaid internship at the zoo. So I stayed with him for 2 weeks, and then I went back to the zoo, and I came home early. She didn't know I was coming home early. And I came in, and before I even got out of my car, I heard her screaming obscenities and stuff. I was like, what is going on? And I come in, and she's in my bedroom screaming at Henry and kicking him. And she tried to, he had a huge incision at the time, by the way, as if kicking a dog's not bad enough. Could have busted open his incision. And she was like shutting the door on him. He was yelping and crying. I lost it. I think this is the closest I have ever come to doing serious physical violence to another human being. I didn't. But what I did do is pack all of my shit up and left right then, because if I had stayed, I'd be in jail right now. So I packed up Henry, and he was having seizures. He was really, really unwell, and I didn't have anywhere to go. So I called my mother, and I said, Mom, Henry and I need to come home. It's the other side of the country, but what was I going to do? I didn't have anywhere to go. I didn't have any money coming in. I didn't have anywhere to go. So my mother tells me, well, you should go to a shelter. One, do you think shelters take dogs? And two, there's not a bunch of shelters where I am anyway. And three, that's what you say to your child when you have a house? But okay. So that was a no-go. So I'm sitting in my car at the park and not knowing what to do. And I ended up having, I'm not going to go into detail here, but I ended up having to do some stuff that that's really given me a lot of trauma in order to have shelter for me and Henry. And this man who let me stay in his house for a few days, who did some things to me, ended up telling me, well, you got to go now. So again, I find myself now traumatized with a very sick dog and nowhere to go. And I didn't know what to do. Do you know who helped me get out of that mess? About 2 weeks of homelessness. Casey helped me. When he found out what was going on, when I called him and I told him, the first thing he did was help me. He met with me, and he gave me money. He gave me enough money to get a hotel for a few days, to get seizure medication for Henry, to get food, to put gas in my car. He did that for me. And the day after I met with him and he gave me the money, and I told him everything about what's going on, the whole thing. We talked for a really long time, and I was able to find a place to stay that night. And the next morning, Henry took a turn, and I had to have him euthanized. And I realized that that woman had been poisoning him. She had wanted to give him eucalyptus oil, which is toxic to dogs. And I said, don't. And I realized the seizures and all the symptoms he was having. I realized too late. It was from eucalyptus oil toxicity. So I had to put my beloved Henry to sleep. And I was alone and homeless, basically. But I did have somewhere to go that night. And my last night with Henry was safe and warm. And that's because of Casey. So just remember that there's goodness in everybody. And that when you see homeless people, you don't know what their story is. Don't judge them. And if you're in a position to help them, help them. If you're not, I'm often not in a position to help. But if you are, do it. I always do. I always do. And I'm not saying that as, oh, look at my good deeds. I'm saying we are failing people as a community, as a society. We are failing a huge portion of our community, and we need to do better. And if we're not going to do better collectively, we need to do better individually. So do what you can where you can, and just remember that everybody has a story. But remember that everybody has goodness and no one's 100% bad. And, he helped me because he loved me. He could have told me to get lost. He could have told me to fuck off, blocked my number, any number of things. His wife had just had surgery. He could have, he said, I can't have you here, but I can help you. And he left her to come help me. Because it is possible to care about more than one person at one time. And because love is love, right? So I am grateful to him forever that because he helped me, I was able to be with my dog in comfort. I was able to find a place to go after that, like a rental. I got a rental after that. And the people that I ended up renting from, they were my friends to this day. I go to all their family events. They have me for holidays. They're the closest thing I have to family out here. I would not have found them otherwise. I didn't have to do anything I didn't want to do after that. I didn't have to do anything that further traumatized me. I've had to move twice because of the stalker, and the first time I flew into an absolute panic because of PTSD from the things I had to do when I was homeless. So just Portland was horrifying. It was just horrifying. LA too. I was in LA recently, and it's just anything we can do for these people, we need to do it. It's something that radical. I almost actually ran for office in Virginia because of anti-homeless architecture, and that was before I was even went through it myself. I went to the boardwalk one day because I grew up in a city on the beach, and they had put up anti-homeless architecture on the benches. And I lost my mind. I lost my temper so bad. I went to my mom's now husband, it was her boyfriend at the time, to see about getting tools because I was going to go down there at night and disassemble it so people could rest on a bench. And when I did, it was welded. It wasn't something you could just pry off or unscrew. You would have had to have gone at it with like a torch and gotten it off. I was just furious. And I was going to run for political office, but hey, I'm never going to win a political office, not unless a lot of things change. So I don't have money, and I'm very open about a lot of things that people will be like, oh, she can't run for office. So just think about these people when you see them, and remember they're humans. That's the other thing, is it's dehumanizing in a way I can't express. And it's easy. I was talking to my brother, and he's like, well, they shuffle off these encampments and then they just come back. Well, it's like, where do they go? What do you mean they just get rid of? I was like, they have to go somewhere. So let's find a solution here, because not everybody has someone who loves them who will come and give them money and help save them from that situation. And it is a hard situation to bounce back from. And so many people are one paycheck away from it, and maybe they don't even realize it. It's really scary. It's a really scary thing. So do everything you can to support people. Do everything you can to support each other. And remember that even people who've done shitty things have love and kindness inside of them. And be thankful for that.